Hola! This is the long-awaited video of my pronunciation guide. I did promise students that I would do it a while ago, and it just took me so long to get around to doing it. So this is a basic pronunciation guide. There is a transcript to go with this. If you would like the transcript, you can click on the link below. So I'm just going to give you a basic outline of some of the pronunciation. I'm not going to go into it in too much detail, and this is going to be part one of two parts, just to make it that little bit simpler. So buckle up. First, we're going to take a look at the vowel sounds. Now, the vowel sounds are slightly different to the English. It's a good idea just to imitate what you hear at this point. Maybe don't even look at the vowel sounds, just imitate. A, E, I, O, U. A, E, I, O, U. So you can see they sound very different to the English vowel sounds. I'm not going to say the English vowel sounds now because it will just make it confusing. So you have to practice these. A, E, I, O, U. Now remember, these are the basic vowel sounds. Sometimes you're going to see these letters as a word and they will not have the same sound, so that's quite important. So let's take a look at stresses and accents. Generally, words without accents, the stress is going to fall on the second to last syllable. So let's take these words for example. Obrigado, semana, dia, noite, cinema. Now you can see that some of these words have more syllables than others. When we're faced with just two syllables, it's going to be stressed on the first syllable. So noite actually has two syllables. Noite, noite, noite. You find that generally when there's an accent on the word, you're going to stress the word where that accent falls. So for example, in the case of this word, está, this is where it's going to fall on the last syllable. Farmácia, farmácia. Stress is going to fall on this A in the middle. It's not farmácia, it's farmácia. Irmã, irmã. So this one's quite important because it's not irmã, it's irmã. So the m is stressed at the end. Now, don't be too worried if you don't get the pronunciation perfect. It's hard to get a perfect pronunciation, but you can get pretty close by following these instructions. So the letter A. When it's at the end of a word, it's going to sound a little like the E and the R in the word butter when it's spoken with a nice British accent. Butter, butter, not like butter, butter. So, obrigada, obrigada, cama, cama. So we're not hearing obrigada or cama. We're stressing this in the right place, and the A sound is more of an at the end. So the acute accent, like we saw in the word farmácia, is a slightly longer, more open vowel sound than the surrounding vowels. So if we listen to the word farmácia, we can hear that first A is kind of not as sharp as this A here. It's almost not as recognizable. It's like it's been removed almost. Farmácia. A. So the fact that this accent is here makes this more A and not like obrigada. The grave accent sounds pretty much the same as above, and it's mostly only used in contractions. For example, vou à praia. Vou à praia. O filme começa às 6 horas. O filme começa às 6 horas. The tilde makes the vowel nasal. Now you can think of this like a flattened N. N, n. So let's see how this word sounds here. Irmão, irmão. São, são. Maçã, maçã. Now, you don't need to make crazy faces when you make these sounds. I've seen some videos out there and people are making the most crazy faces to get these sounds. You can actually source these sounds from English words. So, for example, if we take a look at this word here, this is a perfect word to look at because we have actually this sound in the word sound. So we just cut off the N and the D, sound. And then we can irmão. It's the similar sound that we have in the word sound, just slightly more nasalized. So you don't have to really strain to get these sounds. And the more natural they sound, the better. The letter E. Now, in the vowel pronunciation, it's pronounced E. But when it's a word meaning and, it's going to be pronounced E. This gets very confusing for people. So let's take a look at the case where it's pronounced like E. A Joana e eu. A Joana e eu. Café e bolo. Café e bolo. Notice that the M here isn't pronounced like an M, it's more Again, we're starting to use that nasal sound. In some words, the E is pronounced like a very short E. So, pequeno, pequeno. Many people get this word mixed up and they think it's pequeno, but it's not pequeno. It's the other way around. It's pequeno, pequeno. Almost like this was a P and an I and a K, pequeno. The letter E at the end of the word is hardly audible, but it is there. You have to watch out for this. So, for example, when somebody says ond, they're not just saying ond, they're saying ond, ond. You've got this slight glide off the D, ond. The Brazilian sound will be slightly harder than this, so they will say more onde, onde, which is kind of cute. I just love the Brazilian accent. The same with noite, noite, noite. It's almost like you're just stressing the t at the end. T, noite. So you're never really going to say ondi and noiti, and it's not onde either. Ond, noite. The Brazilians will pronounce this onde and noite. The acute accent with the E is rather like the E and the Y in the word they. E. So even though this is an E here, we've got a different sound to the E above. This E sounds more like an E, but this one is more like an E, and it's this accent here that is making the difference. E. Now, the way you can remember this, because people do get mixed up when they're learning and they see the two of them in a phrase, for example, and they get mixed up as to which one makes which sound. So you can always use this word as a rule. Café, café. With this word, you can see that the E at the end has the A sound. It's a familiar word that everybody uses. Everybody knows the word café. So you can see that in this case, with this at the end, it's café. We have the next word, which is holidays, férias, férias. So it's not férias, it's férias. So it's a slight A sound. The circumflex has an unusual sound, particularly in this word here, which is from the verb ter, to have, meaning they have. In this particular word, we kind of repeat this sound here. So we say tengeng, tengeng. Let's go through this again. Don't look at the word, just listen. Tengeng, tengeng. Now this one here is also going to be like the sound A at the end. Você, você. The O sound is more of an U, você. So it's not você, it's você. Again, you'll probably find it easier if you go through this again and just listen and repeat without reading. Number 4, the letter I. The letter I is pronounced E. Vinho, vinho. So you see, it's not vinho, it's vinho, vinho. This NHO combination sounds like the word new in English. New. Vinho. So you're actually saying V and new. Vinho. This is a hard one because all these I's are E. In the word in English, only a few of them are. In this case, they all sound like E. Identificação. Identificação. And finally, this word, cidade. Cidade. Again, we've got this E at the end. Cidade. Cidade. Acute accent on an I. An A and an I can make one sound, which is I. But when we have an accent on this I, we're splitting the two sounds into individual sounds, an A and an E. Ai. So it becomes ai. And that means there, where the person you're speaking to is. So if I was looking at you, I would say, aí onde você está. The letter O. The letter O at the end of a word will sound like an U. U. Obrigado. Now in this case, it does, at the beginning of the word, it actually has a more closed sound. O. Obrigado. Falo. Falo. With an acute accent, it opens it up a bit more, like the word hop. People have trouble with these two words. I'm going to explain them. Hop. So let's take a look with that in mind. Avó. Avó, which means grandmother. Telemóvel. Telemóvel. The circumflex is going to make that O sound a little bit more closed now, like in the word hope. So you can hear the differences between these two words. Hop, hope. So in this case, it's going to be avó, 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 avó. The letter U. The letter U is pronounced U, not you. So the word we just visited, universidade. It's not universidade, it's universidade. And we have the word for teapot, which is boule, boule. This is the end of part 1. I decided that I was going to do this video in 2 parts so that you get some bite-sized pieces which are easier to digest. So don't forget to like and share, and if you're not yet subscribed to the channel, don't forget to subscribe. You just press that little bell down below. Até a próxima!